our definition of burnout, which came about in the early 1970s, was really outdated and really narrow. It really only looked at how burnout affects the workplace and how the workplace affects and causes burnout. That's great, but our lives are far more dynamic than just the workplace, right? Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Glow Up Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Megan Winkler. Happy New Year! Oh my God, 2026. There's a lot going on. I've completely changed what I was going to talk about today. I was going to talk about kind of having a burnout hangover and navigating post-holiday energy. And some of that is going to come into this episode. But what I really want to focus on is kind of a reset for the year. I know we're kind of like moving slowly into the year. Hopefully you're not hitting the ground running. And I really want to focus on the 6 types of burnout and to address all 6 of those right here, right now, because this is core to my work as a burnout focused coach. And I think it's going to help you as you look forward to 2026 and not only what you want to do, but who you want to be. So before we do that, I do want to address the difference between those 2 things, what you're doing and who you're being, right? So what you do is obviously like the tasks you complete, the work you do, the stuff on your to-do list, but who you're being is how you approach how you do all of those things. Are you someone who is naturally very extroverted or outgoing? Are you someone who's quieter, who is a little more contemplative? Are you an extrovert who's contemplative? Because guess what? That happens too. We are not going to embrace stereotypes here on the podcast. We've never done that, but we're like doubling down on that, not doing that this year. So when I talk about the different types of burnout, it is really easy to focus on like doing and like how do we do something different to prevent, being in this space. And while there is some shifting of your habits, there's also a shift of your mindset and who you want to be. So if you have not set resolutions for the year, if you're not going to, honestly, more power to you. I don't set resolutions at the beginning of the year. I don't set resolutions at any point. I set goals throughout the year, short-term goals that are simple to approach and simple to achieve. But resolutions are something that I found, for me personally, or something that I do when I am feeling starry-eyed and still kind of riding the holiday high from Christmas and New Year's, and I forget about it by mid-January or mid-February, sometimes mid-January, if I'm being completely honest. I instead set a word for the year. My word for this year is collaboration. In fact, Morgan Moss and I talked about this on our joint podcast, Two Witches Talking, and we shared that. I do believe that was the New Year's Day episode was the word of the year. But mine is collaboration. So really coming together with other people to create amazing things. So what does that mean? That means that yes, there's the doing part of collaboration, but there's also the being part of collaboration to say, I don't know everything. I don't need to control everything. I don't need to be in charge. I can join in on something else. I can partner with other people. I can be collaborative and working with other people in kind of a micro community. I don't have to do it all on my own. So if you set a word for the year, I really would love to know what that is. And if one of your goals for the year is to not be as burnt out as you were last year, then you are in the perfect place. So let's just dive in. You might want to take notes on this episode. It's totally up to you. If you've read my book, Breaking Up with Burnout, you have definitely read about these 6 types of burnout. And before I get into those, the way I identified these was I looked at the research. I looked at what scientists and therapists and clinicians had identified in terms of like what kinds of things happen when we're burnout. And so a lot of those really leaned heavily on our physical condition, our motivation or lack thereof, and kind of just our attitudes about things. And as I was examining it, I realized a couple of things, one of which was our definition of burnout, which came about in the early 1970s, was really outdated and really narrow. It really only looked at how burnout affects the workplace and how the workplace affects and causes burnout. That's great, but our lives are far more dynamic than just the workplace, right? And so I definitely was like, okay, we need to look beyond this. And as I looked beyond just the workplace and looked at our very modern life, our post-pandemic, post-shutdown life, our political chaos life, I found that there are actually 6 different ways that we can burn out. And they really create this umbrella over our entire being, our entire life experience in terms of like all the roles we play and all the people that we work with and the people that we meet and who we're quote unquote supposed to be. I don't really like supposed to be. I don't like should. And so I invite you to rethink anytime you use those words. Maybe you shouldn't. See what I did there? Yep, I still use the word should in a sentence. I'm not perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect either. All right, so these 6 types of burnout are social, mental, physical, emotional, energetic, and empathic. And yes, I have to write them down. I came up with this concept and I still have to write them down because I will start listing them and I will lose track by 5. And so I will repeat a 6th one. I'm like, no, I said that one already. Or did I? I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. So, the brain fog is real sometimes, even when we're not burned out. It's just a lot these days. So social burnout is kind of where we are just done with the social aspects of our life. So having a social life is really important to our overall wellness. Having people in our lives that we can have a reciprocal relationship with and conversations with is really important. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you're giving and getting about the same amount, right? We've all had those relationships where we give a lot and we don't receive a lot in turn. And maybe you've actually had the flip version of that where you receive a lot, but you don't feel like you give a lot. Having a really kind of egalitarian relationship and friendship in your life is super important. Being able to be around people whenever possible is really important for your mental health, right? So there's this aspect of we are social individuals, some of us more social than others. And I think it is not an overstatement to say we're all looking for somewhere to belong. And whether that's belonging to a community, belonging to a social group, belonging to a family, it depends, right? It varies between people. But there's a point where our social lives can just get overwhelming. Our families can be overwhelming. We can just feel like this almost itchiness to just like be left alone. And so if you're experiencing social burnout, it could look like an irritability with people. It could look like you just do not have time for other people's stories. Everything starts to feel like bullshit, whether it is or isn't. Feeling like it is, that's a sign that you're socially burnt out. And it's a sign that you might need to re-examine how you're spending your free time, who you're investing your energy in on a social level, on a personal level, and making some adjustments as you need to. All right. Excuse me. So Next one is mental burnout. Mental burnout happens a lot to students. It happens to people that are in intellectually demanding jobs. It happens when you're trying to learn something new. So you could get mental burnout when you're, writing a paper for school or you're learning a new language. You could also get mental burnout from a job that really, really pushes you to stretch your mind in a lot of ways. And so mental burnout starts looking like you're having a hard time focusing, you're having a hard time retaining information. And as I'm kind of going through these types of burnout, this is all outside of any sort of medical or cognitive issue that you might have going on. So like if you had long COVID, you might have brain fog. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're mentally burnt out. It might just mean that you have brain fog from COVID. I'm raising my hand on that. My brain has not been the same since February of 2023. Like I have these gaps and these delays. Anytime you hear me pause on the podcast, or if you hear me pause when I'm speaking with you, I am literally trying to find a word that used to be so easy for me to find, and it's just not there. That's just how it is. Doesn't mean that I'm mentally burnt out. It does mean, however, for me, because I'm not going to like try and diagnose you, and please don't take this as that. For me, when I'm then working on something that's mentally challenging, like creating a new concept or, creating a course for my clients or really diving deep into things, hell, writing my book, the fact that I have the brain fog challenge from COVID it just exasperates what I'm doing in the moment. So like these things are interactive. So if you have Hashimoto's, if you have dyscalculia or dyslexia or anything like that, like it's going to be made worse when you're stressed out and when you're burned out. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like that's the thing that's burning you out. Does that make sense? So mental burnout, it's a lot of like mental load. So it's a lot of learning new concepts, applying knowledge in a new, different way. It could also be from like a new job. So if you get a new job and you're super excited and you dive right in, and then suddenly you're like overwhelmed with all the information and all the new ways to do things and yada, yada, that could be mental burnout, right? Physical burnout is pretty self-explanatory. Your physical body is tired. So a lot of times when I work with my clients, I see that physical burnout actually comes from not being grounded. And so we physically feel like we're a little buoy in the ocean, just kind of like bobbing around in the water. And that feels really exhausting on the system. Physical burnout could also be like you've been pushing your body really hard in the gym to hit a certain goal. You've helped 3 friends move. I think we're all kind of past that point. But God knows, there was a time in college where it's like we all like helped each other move, in and out of dorms or in and out of apartment complexes or whatever. And you just get to the point where you're like, oh my God, I'm just worn out. It can also look like some physical issues like soreness or clenching your teeth, that sort of thing. So it's your physical body, right? It's a manifestation of the stress in a physical form. Emotional burnout is exactly what it sounds like. You are just burnt out emotionally. So this happens a lot after a big grieving process and grieving time. So you've just had this flood of emotions, especially if you're an empathic individual where you not only are feeling your own emotions, but you're feeling the emotions of those around you. So it could also be after something really awesome, like you got married or your kid got married or you had a baby or, you got a new pet and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's just kind of like this overextension of your emotions, good or bad, doesn't matter. But that's when emotional burnout can happen. Energetic burnout happens when it's more like the energy of a space. So, my favorite example of this is that I learned very quickly that if I'm going to be in a situation that's like a retreat or a business conference, something like that, I absolutely have to have my own room so that I can just like disconnect from people and get away from everybody else's energy. And I also need a couple of days blocked off my calendar for once I get home. I'm not working anymore. It's still like a quote unquote vacation time for me, but it really is for me to reset my own energy. So, as someone who's empathic, as someone who's psychic, I feel a lot, I hear a lot, I experience a lot of other people's emotions. If I'm in a space like a retreat where people are spilling their guts, for lack of a better word, or if we're diving into like really emotional stuff, I need time to reset on a smaller scale than that. Like after I've done a burnout healing appointment or done a Reiki session or, met with a client in person, I have to do a couple little things to reset my energy. And a lot of times that just means like releasing other people's energy, returning it to sender in a very loving way. So we're not like return to sender and fuck you too. We're in this energy of, hey, that's not my energy. That's your energy. You take that back. I'm going to reclaim my energy that might have gotten left behind so I can feel whole and then moving on with our life. So that's what energetic burnout can look like. Finally, empathic burnout can look like not giving a shit about the people around you. And I know that sounds harsh, but there's a point that you can hit if you're in empathic burnout where you're just like, I just can't deal with other people's problems. Or it feels like everybody's coming to you for answers or support, or they're coming to you for guidance, and they need you for all the things and all the stuff. And it just feels overwhelming. I always know that if I am traipsing into energetic burnout, I am saying things like, ugh, everybody wants something from me. That is like one of my big cues that I'm like, ooh, maybe I'm a little empathically burned out. Maybe I have, empathized a little too much with folks around me. And I've lost a little bit of myself along the way. I got to reset. So none of the activities that we do that send us into burnout are necessarily bad, right? We're working towards goals. We're working out. We're learning a new language. We're, tasked with a project at work. We've supported a friend going through a breakup. Maybe we've been to a funeral. Maybe we've started a new job and we're super excited about that. Maybe there's a new baby in the family and you're super excited about being an auntie or an uncle. None of these are bad. They're just parts of life. And it only becomes a problem when we don't allow ourselves to feel our feelings and we don't allow ourselves to rest. So actually the next episode after this, so next week will be on the 7 types of rest, which I did not come up with. We will go into all of those types of rest, but they just coordinate really well with the 6 types of burnout. When you feel like you are at your wit's end, you don't have to say, oh, well, I think I'm feeling socially burnt out, or, oh, I am feeling mentally burnt out. What I want you to do instead is to think about what's been going on in my life that is burning me out, and what's one thing that I can do to shift that. So if it's a lot of pressure at work, maybe having a conversation with your supervisor is the best action. And you say, hey, since so-and-so left, I've taken on a lot of extra work, can we come to a solution for that? And quite honestly, like if you're going to go to your boss and say, hey, I've got a problem, come with a solution idea as well. And that will help smooth everything over. It'll make them more receptive to your ideas and more receptive to helping you. Same thing if you've got some relationship stress, or if your teenager is teenagering and you just cannot get through to them. approaching it as a, hey, I'm feeling this way. And this is getting to be a challenge for me. Can we talk about maybe doing this instead, right? Like kind of offering that other idea. If it's something just within you and you realize that maybe you're over empathizing with the state of the world, that is really easy to do right now, by the way. And I found myself doing that as well. So maybe it's that you stop following certain accounts online, or you distance yourself from the news for a couple of days, allowing yourself to reset. Maybe communicating to your partner that is like, hey, I need to get away from the news for a couple of days. Will you let me know if you see something that's like earth shattering, and otherwise, like, I'll figure it out in a couple of days. Something that simple can make a huge difference in your stress management and your overall wellness. The reason I like to share about the 6 types of burnout is it can be really helpful if you are one of those people who likes to dig deeper into the cause of things and like what's going on and like how to specifically solve those. But on a grander scale, I like to share it because I want you to understand how complex burnout really can be. It's not just like I'm overworked and overwhelmed. It can be really complex and really nuanced. And what burns you out may not burn me out. I don't get physical burnout. I just really don't. Because I learned a long time ago what my body needs and what it doesn't need. And that, like, I can go to the gym and lift weights, but I am not a marathon runner. That's just not how I'm built. Also, knowing that the person beside you might be burning out in a completely different way is also helpful. I think it really helps increase our empathy for others to say, hey, I don't know what's going on with them, but I get it because I get burned out this way. So, like I said, I like to share that information with you just because burnout is a beast. Stress management can be really hard. And until you kind of figure out what your tendencies are and how you tend to burn out, how you tend to stress out, it can be kind of confusing and it can be overwhelming unless you kind of dive into that. So if you want more information about that, I've got blogs up on my site. And of course, the best resource, honestly, for that is my book, Breaking Up with Burnout, where I actually go through the 6 types of burnout, the causes, what you can do about it, how to kind of heal from those causes. Again, from a non-pathologicalizing point of view, right? I'm not here to diagnose your issues. I'm here to just kind of help you spot trends so that you can make adjustments and shift your life and shift your being around so that you can set yourself up for more success in the future. I hope you had a really great holiday season. If you find that you're feeling pretty burnt out after the holidays, that is natural and normal. I want to remind you that January is still the deep winter. It is still a time for rest and hibernation. It's time for reflection. It's time for quiet. I told somebody in my networking group this week that I have hit the ground walking at a moderate speed. So I hope you are like me and you are approaching the new year with a moderate walking speed, not running, not bursting out, unless that just feels really good to you, in which case, enjoy. But don't feel like you have to, because if you start the year off pushing, you will burn out. You will feel completely overwhelmed. And that's just not a cool way to start the year. Like, I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. Let's not do that. Coming up, like I said, next week, we're going to talk about the 7 types of rest. And then I'm going to talk about your brain on burnout. And then we're going to talk about the year of the horse coming up, because we're still in the year of the snake until mid-February. But here at the end of the month, I am going to talk a little more about what's coming up for the Lunar New Year and what we can expect from the fire horse. And I will say already, cosmically and astrologically, we are taking aligned action starting this week. And I think it's going to be a really great January. So move forward, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, take care of yourself, drink plenty of water, get plenty of rest, eat some good food. Don't beat yourself up over the indulgences of the holiday season. It ain't that big a deal. And move your body a little bit. And those are very simple tips that I know thousands of people share every week on Instagram or TikTok or wherever. But they really are foundational to taking care of ourselves. So take care of yourself. Let me know if you need anything. And if you love what you hear here, please share it with anybody that might want to listen. Please like, review, and comment on any of these episodes, because that just helps to kind of push it out to the rest of the world. And if you would like to hang out with me a little more, I encourage you to go check out my Patreon. It's here in the show notes. It's the Glow Up Circle. And for just $3 a month, you get some fun little extras throughout the month, little PDFs and downloadables and journal prompts and that sort of thing. And you can also join for free. And I just love having you there. I appreciate everyone who is in those circles. And I actually want to give them all a shout out. So whether you are a new paid supporter on Patreon or you've been here for a while, I just want to say thank you again. Y'all make it possible for me to keep this podcast ad-free, and you help support the work. So shout out to, and a big thank you, high five, magical unicorn sprinkles of gratitude to Johanna, Melanie, Carrie, Sean, Karen, Damaris, Joan, Ronica, and Adria. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your continued support. And if you need anything, you know where to reach me, meganwinkler.com. Come hang out on Instagram at It's Megan Winkler. You can also find me at YouTube, the same handle. So until next time, take care of yourself, stay hydrated, move a little, and as always, stay magical. Bye, y'all.